Welcome to toy-polloi.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi, and in today's video we're going to be trying to fix a very common problem on this vintage Generation 1 Transformers hot rod. Now, to look at him now you think he's actually in pretty good condition. In fact, if I rotate him around, this one is in pretty good condition, but there is one thing that always breaks on this toy, and that is the canopy part of it, or the little hood part here, snaps off. As part of the transformation progress you're supposed to lift that up and twist it round, and it always snaps at this point. You see these more often than not with this piece broken, and that is what we're going to be trying to fix today. I've no idea if it can be fixed because I've never actually worked on one of these before, but I thought it would be quite a nice challenge to have a go at. This one also has incredibly loose floppy feet, so we might as well try and fix that at the same time. But the main thing I want to fix is obviously this canopy. So let's start taking this apart and see what needs doing and see if it can actually be fixed. Okay, so what we've got to do is open up this hot rod to get to the broken piece. You can see it snapped off there and the broken piece is still connected there. I'm not sure if that's a screw or something, or a rivet. We'll find that out once we get inside. But to get inside we have to undo a few areas, I'm going to guess. So let's take a look at him and see what we've got to work with. I can see that we need to get into this orange section. And to do that, we're going to have to, I see there's two screws here, so we need to remove those two screws. I think that will open up the front part, the sort of top section. I reckon there's probably more screws inside this leg, so we're going to have to take these legs off as well, which is a little bit annoying because you can see there are stickers over a couple of the screw holes. One of them's already been undone. I'm going to sacrifice this sticker and stick my screwdriver through it. At some point I might buy some replacement stickers for this anyway. You can see they're a little bit worn. So let's undo these screws and see how easy it is to get inside of a hot rod here. So we'll start with his legs. We'll take one of these off first. That screw is easy to get to. And this one, as I say, someone's already pierced the sticker on that one. Maybe they've already had a go at trying to fix this, who knows. I picked this up off eBay, so you don't actually know what's gone on with it. I'll just leave that together like that. Oh right, looks like that middle section is only held together with the two screws there, but we would have to take the other leg off just so that everything unclips. I can't see any other screws holding that together. That's interesting. So let's take the other one off, and then we'll undo the two screws on the waist and see what happens. So here we go. I'm going to sacrifice that sticker. I could have tried putting a bit of lighter fluid under it, but these are, as I say, pretty worn, so I'm not that worried about them. It will be easy enough to replace them. So that is that open. Can we also see why this is loose? Interesting. Yeah, I think I can work out why that's loose. We'll deal with that later. But let's start with the main issue first. So let's undo these two screws here and see what happens. Hopefully we can access this in here, which I think is going to be a screw, and it's got a spring on it from what I can see. Let's see what happens. Right, that's all the screws out. Let's give this a wiggle. Looks like there's something going on. There's something is holding it in place. Might just be pegs. So if I get a knife out, I should be able to wiggle that and open it up. So let me get something to get into that gap there. We'll see if we can wiggle that apart. I bought myself a whole selection of tools for opening mobile phones, and these seem pretty good for sort of wiggling bits of plastic apart. So let's try one of these. Oh yeah, I can see there's a post at this end, so we're going to have to just sort of wiggle this a bit. Hopefully this will unclip. We'll have to do the same on the other side as well. The other side, right? Yeah, there's just a couple of posts there that go into these little sockets, but that's all open. Oh, and there we go. It is just a screw on the inside. So with all of that removed, we can now access the bit that is broken. So there's a screw here which is holding on a spring that goes into a post, and that is the post that is snapped off the top part of the canopy here. So you can see that's snapped clean through. Yeah, that is a really weak point. So we are going to have to see what we can do to fix that. maybe some plastic weld, maybe we'll have to use a bit of super glue, maybe even a longer screw. I can see the screw finishes about there. If we put a screw that went in all the way up to the top, that might be the solution. Let me see what I can find. Let me see what will work. Right, now I've got everything apart and had a sort of little think about how I'm going to do this. It's a sort of two-part fix, and I think it should produce a very strong repair. That means this roof will continue working for a very long time. What's happened is this post has snapped off. I'm guessing it gets stuck, and as you twist it, it's just sort of sheared off. The screw only goes a little way into this, so at the top section where it's broken, it is just plastic. So my plan is we're going to plastic weld these two pieces back together, which will form a reasonable bond. It's not going to be an amazing bond because this is a particularly weak spot, but it will hold everything in place. So once that's then plastic welded in place, I have found this screw in my sort of packets of screws. I've always got lots of screws around and little packets of things that I've used for previous projects. And this screw is about 1.8 millimeters long, and it just so happens that it will fit in the hole of this post and then also go all the way through it and screw into the remaining section that's on the roof. So we'll have a screw that goes the entire length of this post into the roof to give some extra support. The problem is though that the head of this screw is quite small. The screw that I took out has a sort of inbuilt washer on it, and that is to hold this tiny little spring in place. So I need to find a washer, and unfortunately I don't have a washer that size. So I'm just sort of making something up today, which is using a piece of 0.5 millimeter thick styrene sheet, and my hole punch, as you can see, I can punch a piece of this styrene sheet out. If I just do that now, like so, and we end up with this, which is a tiny little circle of 0.5 millimeter thick styrene, which I can drill through, and that should be enough to hold this spring in place. So I'm essentially making my own little 0.5 millimeter thick styrene sheet washer. If I had some washers, I would use that, but in this instance I don't, so I'm just making this up and it will do exactly the same job. Right, let's get the plastic weld out. We'll plastic weld this broken piece in place, and then we can start putting it all back together and seeing if my idea works. Just let that plastic weld set for 20 minutes, and that feels pretty firm. Obviously, as I say, it's still a weak spot, so that's why we need the extra screw in place, but that is actually not too bad a fix. So we can now start putting this back together. So this is the front section of hot rod, and we push that post through the hole in the middle, and then you can see that the sort of top part of that post appears on the other side, and that's where we put this tiny little spring that goes over the top of that. And then we've got my longer screw here with the little washer that I've made attached to it, and we have to screw that through. And I'm going to screw this on pretty gently because I don't want to break anything that I've sort of plastic welded together. It shouldn't break, but you just don't know with this sort of plastic. It is old and it is a bit brittle, so let's do this gently. I'll screw the screw all the way down, and it should go through the sort of original part of the post and then into the top section after the break, and it'll give it that sort of extra bit of rigidity and strength, and hopefully this will never break again. So go all the way down. I can feel that's reached pretty much the top of the post. So that roof now is held on, and we should be able to rotate it round and it will lock in place. Yeah, that is working really well. I'll give that a little bit of a pull just to see that nothing is moving. Yeah, that doesn't feel bad at all. So that's worked. So we can now start putting hot rod back together. We just sort of reverse the process of taking him apart. So we'll put his legs back on, which is this section. That just goes on there, and then there are two screws hidden behind the sort of pelvis plate. And before we put the bottom parts of the legs on, we will sort out the loose feet. But let's get all of this screwed back together first. So there should be two screws here. We just drop those in that and screw those in, and then we can also put his head back on. Looking at the toe, I was hoping I'd be able to unclip it, but that's not going to be the case. It's sort of clipped in between these two little flanges here, and I don't think I will be able to unclip it without damaging the plastic. So there is a simple way of fixing it even without removing it. All we're going to need is some of this shearing elastic. It's sort of thin, quite stretchy elastic. You can buy this from most haberdashery shops. And we need to thread that through and then wrap it around the little axle joint. On this, it's a little bit more awkward than that because the gap that we've got to get the shearing elastic through is incredibly tiny. You can just about see it through there. So to thread it through, I'm going to use a little piece of beading wire. I'm going to push that through the hole there, and then I'm going to make a little hook on the other end of it, and I will pull some of the shearing elastic through. Once we've done that, we can then tie it around the joint, and that should stiffen this up nicely. It's a little bit awkward to do. I've done it off camera, and it's pretty straightforward. Doing it on camera is proving harder than I would have imagined, but let's have a go. Actually not too bad at all. So you can see we've got a piece of shearing elastic through here. We're going to move this to one side of the toe, just onto one of the little joints where it pivots, and I'm going to pull that through so it's sort of as tight in as I can get it, like that. And then on the back side here, I'm going to tie a couple of knots on the shearing elastic just to hold it in place. You only need a tiny amount of extra friction to stop this toe moving, and this shearing elastic is just about thick enough to do that. So I'm going to tie that in like that. I will tie it again just to make sure it doesn't come undone. And then we're going to pull these ends around and we can just cut those off. Again, just using a pair of plastic nippers because I've got those to hand, like so. So we've now got a very sort of small amount of shearing elastic to one side of the toe, and that makes it quite a lot stiffer. You can see that's going to stay in place. It's a really simple fix. Sometimes you get little ends that sort of pop out here just where the shearing elastic is sort of showing. All you're going to do is get a knife and you can push those in. That's why we did it on the sort of the back side of the toe, because if you can see it, it will be hidden sort of inside the figure. There you go. So we've now got a much stiffer foot here for Hot Rod, and yeah, he'll be ready for action. So we can now put this leg back together. And there we go, that is it for this repair. Everything is now working on this Hot Rod and he's back ready to be displayed. So his feet, that was a fairly simple fix. As you see, a little bit of the shearing elastic just to put in the joint there, and those really work well. And we can now transform him fully. So let's do this transformation and get him back into his car mode. Those arms have to rotate like that. The top section we twist around like so. We can then push his head out of the way, put his arms down, move his feet back in place, and then we'll flip his head over and that hooks under there. So you can see everything is now working on this figure. The most complicated bit is actually fixing that roof section, but as you saw, it's a fairly straightforward process. A little bit of plastic weld just to reattach the broken post, and then using a longer screw seems to be the real key part, because that then attaches the broken bit to the sort of remains of the top section. There's actually quite a lot of the top section left on, so it's going to be a very strong fix, and I can't see there being any issues with that in future. As I say, I've been enjoying fixing up these vintage G1 toys. There are so many sort of common issues in it. I'm trying to sort of work my way through all of those. If you know of other common issues on G1 toys, then do leave a comment below and let me know which ones I should cover next, because I will try and cover as many as I possibly can. If you've enjoyed this video, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the bell to be notified each time I upload a new video. And if you've really enjoyed it, then why not think about becoming a Patreon or YouTube channel member. You get early access to all of my videos, and you also get access to exclusive videos that you won't see anywhere else, so it's well worth signing up. And thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching Toy-Polloi. Subscribe for more great videos.